Hi, my name's Natalie, and this is what I think is going to be happening in 2030, 9 years from now, as a result of the events of the past year in 2020. So, obviously, recently we went through a global pandemic with COVID-19, which severely impacted our economic, political, and social relationships. We also experienced an increase in rise in social activism regarding the Black Lives Matter movement, having that be the largest social justice movement in history. And then we also went through the 2020 presidential elections in the US, which challenged our democratic system and increased our bipartisan division. So, the lasting impacts of these issues, the first issue is going to be most prevalent in 2030 is the dissemination of information. We will see a drastic change in the way information is shared and received, more so within the past 10 years than all of the history of media, and a more gradual transition to where we've been at now. And the role of social media plays will only increase. And this has definitely some dangers and implications to it. And the way information is being spread and shared is going to drastically change and rapidly transform over the next 9 years. We also will see an increase in government attention and a spotlight specifically on the federal government in terms of their responses. And this is a huge impact of COVID-19 and the BLM movement. The government will respond in more performative work, but ultimately that is the first step in creating actual systemic change and more radical change. But we will see a lot of government performatism. And then lastly, there's going to be a very big drastic impact in the way businesses talk and present themselves. The rhetoric that's commonly used in private businesses and private institutions is definitely going to change. They're being held to a higher standard for providing ecologically and socially conscious products, and this was a result of government negligence, and that the government is not doing a lot to regulate the private sector. But consumer demand is forcing this change, and that businesses will have to address the way that they talk to customers and clients. So, diving into these lasting impacts, the first one is the dissemination of information. So, social media played a critical role in the development of the Black Lives Matter movement and in how people responded to the 2020 election. And crowdsourced media will receive even more attention throughout the next coming years, especially in 2030. And I personally predict that, and there's studies that suggest more popular platforms right now, such as Instagram and Facebook, are going to become less popular, as there is a change in the perceived narrative that people want to get from their social media. And Instagram is known for having more of an influencer status and kind of more picturesque and ideal scenarios, whereas TikTok is becoming very popular and on the rise, and it resonates more with younger generations, such as Gen Z, because it has more authenticity to it. It's less of a perfected image, and it's more relatable content. But it also has a lot more. It has a lot greater flexibility for the information that can be portrayed, since it is primarily videos up to a minute long. There's a lot of information that's being shared on TikTok. And it will increase in popularity while other mainstream sources tend to go down, just in terms of social media, not talking about traditional media. And this will ultimately actually lead to increased division on public issues, because of artificial intelligence and private information that's being gathered from these different tech companies and from media companies, social media. It just enhances confirmation bias, and everybody who's on there is just receiving curated content and curated information that already is in line with what they currently believe. And this will be really interesting to see because we haven't seen confirmation bias like this played out on a large scale for multiple decades. And by 2030, there will have major implications and serious issues regarding this. There is more information available and accessible online, and that will continue over the next decade. But the information that you are actively engaging with and seeing is already tailored to your specific ideals and belief. So, because of the dissemination of information and the way it's been going on and will continue to go on, will create more division based on issues and perspective. So, there's going to be less collaboration, less. There's less of an ability to share ideas and collaborate on issues. It's going to become even more of a bipartisan system, which is very dangerous in regards to achieving growth and success in the private and public sphere. Then next, we're going to see more performative government actions. And this is a result of COVID-19. There's increased attention on government agents and actors, The public appearance and outward projection is heavily important and criticized based on of what the US government is doing. And while on the surface level, it seems like there's making change or there is more inclusivity or equity or better, more progressive programs that are addressing injustices and inequality, there won't actually be any significant real change. They won't change any of the shading dealings that goes on with businesses. There's still going to be a lot of things that are going on behind closed doors and a lot of things that's not available to the public, but the image that they are presenting to the public will be much more tailored and curated and thought through. And over the next 10 years, we are still going to see enhanced corrupt capitalism. In regards to the previous paper in my outlook, I do think capitalism can be a great way to address problems in the most efficient way, in the most cost effective way, but without government regulation and government interference. Free market capitalism leads to widespread exploitation and is very problematic, but the government is only going to be prioritizing performative work and there won't actually be any major legislative change. So we're going to see increased income inequality between the wealthy elite and people who are succeeding in large corporation dealings, while the middle class and lower middle class will be struggling even more because all of the government work will be performative. That is my personal opinion. And we also will see more performative business practices. There's been an increase in demand for like green businesses and products that are ethically and ecologically conscious. And there, it does have good intentions, but the issues are surface level. And while people think they want to be buying from something that's doing good on the environment and good work socially, they don't know exactly how to measure that or how to work with that. And this will influence small businesses more than larger corporations. Corporate power will still remain largely intact, but there'll be greater popularity and support for smaller businesses. This is response to like the BLM movement and greater social equality that's being demanded. And the UN Sustainable Development Goals is being heavily incorporated to a lot of like corporate responsibility framework, but once again, it is still heavily performative. And hopefully, performative work is the first step into more actual change. But I think within the next 10 years, we're not going to be at a place where people have fully advanced and well developed social and ecological responses to the issues and business practices, but it's going to be presented in a way where they are. Both the government presenting a certain face and image to the public as well as businesses. And that's where I think I do have a strength and an opportunity. I'm a double major in marketing and environmental studies. So I see opportunities in developing authentic sustainability initiatives for brands and businesses. Um, I recently did an internship with like a private equity firm that's trying to develop their sustainability program and invest in funds that have some aspects of sustainability and environmental responsibility. So the demand for it definitely is there. And I think while the main priority of businesses is going to be to present a good face to the public or to investors, I think that there's an opportunity where I can help in developing authentic and genuine change through that. And that's what I'm hoping for, hopefully to do that in fashion. But I do see the opportunity for it. And while people will only kind of demand a surface level and kind of blanket explanation, I think that there's a real opportunity to create substantial change with that. Thank you.